And today I am joined by Helen Callis from Recruit for Spouses. Hello, Helen. It is lovely to see you.
Good morning. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So we met a couple of years ago through Recruit for Spouses, where you are the coaching and mentoring manager. And in terms of background, you are an RAF veteran, having served in the RAF as an officer and a fast jet navigator. And you did that for 10 years. And you've also lived and worked in Canada and the US, where you were a teacher.
That's right, yeah.
Succinct, rounds us all up.
Yeah, pretty much. Nice
Perfect.
Overview of the last decade and a half or so.
Perfect. Okay, well, are you ready for your 5 curly career questions?
Sure, yeah, let's go.
Perfect. All right, first question. Tell me about a time when you experienced a bit of a career transition or a time that you felt stuck.
Okay, so probably the biggest career transition I've made was leaving the military in 2012. So I went straight from university to the Royal Air Force and went through officer training and then training to be a navigator, which took over my life for the best part of 5 years, that training. And then once qualified, was posted up to Scotland, where I spent 5 years on the operational front line. And then I left there and went to back into the training system, so to be an instructor and a trainer for some of the junior navigators sort of coming up and through the Air Force. But with that came, unfortunately, changes in defence spending and things like that. So in 2012, I was made redundant because I didn't need any navigators anymore. Most of the planes were going to single seat. So that was the end of that. So I found myself going through a huge career transition then, because the previous 10 years had been very focused and ambitious, and then being told you're being made redundant. And even though I had suspicions that it might be coming my way, it was still a real big shock, because, you know, when you first sign on, you know it's going to be for 16 years. That's the contract I was on. For it to be curtailed 6 years early, and, you know, having signed up at the age of 21, and by then I was about 30, so it felt like this really big transition. And 30 at the time felt like I was old, and what in the world was I going to do in that moment? You know, what could I now turn my hand to? And I felt like, a bit lost, really, actually, as to what to do next. So that's my biggest career transition, leaving the military, and also the identity that you leave behind when you transition from the armed forces and go into the world of civvy street, as we called it, was a massive transition for me, and probably still elements of which I battle with now, you know, about identity in your career and what your next steps are, because it was such a focus for such a big period of time.
Yeah, wow, that is huge. I kind of like had the feeling like, you know, the rug's been pulled out from underneath you, kind of thing, really.
Yes, absolutely.
Massive.
It was. And then on top of that, it actually coincided quite nicely with my husband being posted to Canada. So then throw into the mix a bit of an international move. And actually, that was quite a relief for me at the time, because I was like, well, we're moving abroad. I don't need to worry about finding a job for a bit. So actually, it took the pressure off, because I was like, well, let's focus on that initially. So
give
that
yourself some breathing space. Yeah,
exactly.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you. So when we start out in our careers, we have priorities, you know, be it climbing the ladder, money, whatever it is. And as we kind of like progress through our careers, our priorities change. What one way have your priorities changed?
Yeah, sure. So definitely from being in the Air Force, where there was a definite ambition and a point I wanted to achieve, which was to qualify and go and serve on the front line. And my priority at that point was that goal, that ambition. But I was in my early to mid 20s, you know, and then as time went on, and life happens to you. You know, you meet your partner, maybe you get married, maybe you have kids. That definitely became my priority and my focus, which actually probably works out quite nicely because, you know, two people being in the military is, one person being in the military and being a military spouse and following that person around on postings is enough of a challenge, let alone you both trying to do it. So my priorities definitely changed from what I set out to do when I was 21 to now my priorities are my partner, my family, and what that looks like going forward.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Cool, thank you. So, what are a couple of maybe key resources or pieces of advice that you've had along the way?
Yeah, sure. So somebody once asked me when I was moving back, I think it was from America, and I was trying to find a job back in the UK, and somebody asked me, can I remember a time or a day in work, or remember a time where I had a really great day, like a really enjoyable day in work, and asked me to go back and sort of think about that and try and pinpoint it. And what exactly was it that I remembered about it? Why was it good? Why was it enjoyable? And what did that mean for me going forward in terms of what I looked for in my next role? So that was a really great question, and it made me home in on being part of a team, actually.
Okay.
So, yeah, the importance of like that sense of belonging and being part of a team and having sort of a common goal. So that was a good question or piece of advice that helped me home in on what it was that I wanted. So I'd say that was probably one of the best pieces of
Yeah,
advice.
the bit that sits with you. That's a really cool idea, actually. You know, yeah, what is it from your past? Relive that one day and just think about the feelings, the thoughts, what was going on, what made it so great. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice. Thank you.
exactly.
So, we talked about this before. I hate loathing to test coriander. So, in a professional setting, what would be your coriander equivalent?
Sure. So I think definitely being micromanaged. I really, really hate that. So, and I don't have that in my current job. I'm very trusted and autonomous to do the role that I have as part of our team, and I remote work. So
Yeah,
more
okay.
often than not, I'm working by myself from home with team meetings, but I'm left to my own devices, which I love. But I have experienced in the past being micromanaged, where somebody's in your chili,
In Italy.
they're in your chili, want to know what you're doing, and making you prove what you're up to and that
Yeah.
you're doing what you're meant to be doing. I loathe that. I hate that. So yeah, that would be my coriander.
That's that's very good. Yeah, yeah. I think it must be a challenge for the managers and the leaders who do really thrive on micromanaging now that people do work so much more remotely.
Yeah,
Had to
yeah.
make a big transition, I imagine.
And we used to call that, maybe they still do in the military, but if somebody does micromanage you, they've got a long screwdriver. So they might be stood quite far away, but they've got their screwdriver in
They're just
in
twisting
your
you.
work and in your job, and fiddling with what you're trying to do.
Mm,
Can't stand it.
no,
Yeah.
fair enough. Good, thank you. Powerful. Okay, so in Maori culture, a koha is a gift. And so, using that concept a bit loosely, what koha gift would you give to somebody now who's maybe going through a career transition or a bit stuck?
Sure. I would say probably to work with a coach, which I know is maybe an easy thing for me to say as a coaching manager of a program that offers coaching, but I think people sometimes dismiss it as not for them, or they don't need that, or they're okay by themselves. But actually, if I'd had that when I left the military in 2012, I think it could have really, really benefited me to help work out, um, what my boundaries were, what it is that I wanted, what I was prepared to accept or not accept, and also understand myself a bit more. I think would have been really beneficial. my gift would be for people to work with a coach to work out what it is that you want if you're going through a career transition, and don't be dismissive of the fact. Just talking to somebody in itself can be hugely beneficial. I don't know how many. I'm sure if you put it into Google, how many thoughts do people have in a day? I'm sure it's tens of thousands, right?
Yeah.
And quite often they can be negative or, harsh, sort of self-criticism. And actually, if you voice some of those out to a coach who can help you identify what it is that you're actually thinking there, and is there really any truth behind it, can help you sort of progress, move on, work out what it is that you want.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that would be my gift.
Very, very good idea. Okay, thank you. So that's the end of your official 5 Curly Career questions, but there is a mystery question.
All right.
So this is something that was left by a previous interviewee, which is an idea I stole from Stephen Bartlett, or borrowed from him. So, what little thing, pleasure, habit, keeps you going when work is intense?
Well, that's an easy one for me. That's definitely getting fresh air in whatever form. So I don't mean necessarily going out for some 10-mile run or anything like that. Even if you've just got 30 minutes and you're like, well, what can I achieve in that? Just put your shoes and your coat on and go and get some fresh air and walk. And that can really help clear your mind and refocus what is and maybe isn't important. So that would definitely be my go-to thing.
Perfect. In fact, the person that set that question said that sitting in the garden for 5 minutes with a coffee.
Oh, yeah. Right.
So it's that outside. Yeah.
Perfect. Being in nature.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Helen. That has been my pleasure. You can leave a question. You will leave a question after this. But thank you for that.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me, Helen.
You're welcome.